What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's review is Crank High Voltage. Crank High Voltage is a 2009 black comedy action film that was written and directed by Neveldine Taylor and is a sequel to the 2006 film Crank. This film was first requested to me by DoubleRX Knight Hunt on my Straight Outta Compton review that I released back on the 13th of March. Okay, so Crank High Voltage primarily follows Jason Statham's character Chev Chelios. Chev is a madman with an indestructible heart that has been stolen from him by a mobster. Chev is constantly running and is in search of high energy to keep his current heart from giving out on him. In order to retrieve his indestructible heart, he has to battle his way through a number of different gangsters and mobsters, and he spends the rest of the runtime kicking ass and doing anything possible to keep himself as cranked as possible. Okay, Crank High Voltage was honestly a request that I didn't know anything about. I watched like maybe 30 seconds of the trailer on YouTube and I thought, this looks like another one of those movies that I should probably just go into relatively blind. Well, that's what I did, and I was like, what in the world did I get myself into? Crank High Voltage is unapologetic, chaotic, frantic, any description you want to put out there for anarchy, this movie fits that description. And because of that, it's going to be a film that I think a very particular viewer will enjoy. The person who will really value this film is the person who's not only looking for something different, but also something that is unusually different and unfiltered. This movie is so fucking weird, man. To me, it almost felt like a so bad it's good approach, which makes sense considering it's a black comedy. I mean, the action is completely over the top and ridiculous. The dialogue is super cheesy and out there, and even the characters themselves feel like thinly written video game characters. But with any film like this, we need to recognize that all of this is by design. I think it's very obvious that the filmmakers wanted to make something that was super out there and had its own identity, and that's definitely what they did, because this movie is just pure high octane ridiculousness from start to finish and holds absolutely nothing back whatsoever. It's never worried about being offensive, it's never shy, and it never slows down at all. It's just video game style anarchy in movie form. And that's what makes this film kind of a tough one to review, because there's obviously cons to this movie for the everyday viewer, but those cons are once again probably there by design. What you may consider cons are what the filmmakers likely consider pros, because it helps lend to the overall stylistic goals of the film itself. Cheesy dialogue, over-the-top fight scenes, characters that are fairly simple and underdeveloped, and a story that's in constant sprint from the very get-go. These are all stylistic choices that were implemented to bring a unique vision to life, a vision that's very different from other action films that were out there in 2009. This movie makes a very concerted effort to deliver you something that's different from everything else you've seen before, which is why it's not going to be for everyone. But even though it's not for everyone, I do think that there is a bit to enjoy here if you go in with the right expectations. I highly recommend that if you do watch it, that you not take it too seriously, because it's not intended to be taken seriously. It's meant to be over-the-top chaos and not much else. It's unfiltered anarchy. With that said though, I can say that I didn't always find myself too invested in this experience. I kind of drifted in and out because I never felt any sort of attachment to the characters, and after a while things can tend to feel a little one note. I don't lay this blame at the feet of Jason Statham, who's actually pretty funny in this movie, but I instead lay the blame at the feet of the writer-directors and their blueprint. While the action is generally well done, after a while the unfiltered silly approach wore on me a little bit because I found myself wanting the film to take things a little bit more seriously. It sort of felt like that one friend who's constantly joking around when you're trying to finish a group project and they just can't put on their serious face when you need them to. I make that comparison because there are points where Crank High Voltage has opportunities to become something a little bit more than what it was intended to be. There's times where Chev interacts with other characters, and during these interactions, there's not enough actually being said between the characters that matters. Instead of these conversations resulting in the audience caring more about Chev staying alive, the movie refuses to take itself seriously and instead just results in a few minutes of mostly meaningless downtime. The fast-paced action was actually pretty cool, I enjoyed it, but it too wore on me after a while. The action is very violent, but it's sort of like Tarantino on steroids in that it cracks a lot of jokes and is so over the top and has no basis in reality that you can't help but laugh at the nonsensical chaos you're witnessing on screen. This movie has an unabashed sense of humor to it. It never takes itself too seriously, and it's not worried about offending you in any way, shape, or form. It's designed to be overly raunchy and overly violent, and it doesn't hold anything back with that approach. It doesn't pull any punches, and I thought that was pretty interesting. It may sound like I really enjoyed this film, but I'm really somewhere in between on it. There were definitely stretches of time where I felt invested and interested in the chaos, and others where I felt like I wanted something more than this film was willing to give me. With an actor as charismatic and badass as Jason Statham, I just wish there was more to his character that I could connect with. Sadly, this film isn't really about that. It's about anarchy above all else. So do you have to see the original Crank to enjoy Crank High Voltage? No, I don't think so, because I didn't watch it and I still thought High Voltage was a decent experience. I think the only requirement is an understanding of what this film is and what not to expect expect from it. Don't expect anything but crazy and violent action and dark comedy. But overall, Crank High Voltage was a decent experience for me. I think it can be a solid viewing experience for the right audience. I thought it had some stylistic, chaotic action, some decent humor, and a strong performance from Jason Statham, and the cons are basically the same as the pros because there's weaknesses to the execution. One addition though is the weak dialogue and characters. That's a big problem. In terms of a recommendation, I'll say yes as long as you know what you're getting yourself into. This is a film only hardcore movie lovers will enjoy because it's non-conventional in almost every way. So have you guys seen Crank High Voltage yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know your favorite Jason Statham movie. Mine would be The Transporter. That's all for now though. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next video.